Hello and welcome to What the F*** Just Happened Today, your essential guide to the daily shock and awe in national politics. I'm Joe Amditis. Let's get to it. It's Monday, October 30th, 2023. Welcome to day 1014. The Israel Defense Forces, or IDF, has expanded and will continue and intensify its ground operation in the Gaza Strip as troops and armored tanks have moved toward Gaza from at least three sides to conduct coordinated attacks from the ground and the air. Since the October 7th attack, more than 1 million people, half the population of Gaza, have been displaced, and the Gaza Health Ministry says more than 8,000 people, including women and children, have died. When Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was asked about the civilian death toll in Gaza from Israeli airstrikes, he claimed that not a single civilian has to die and accused Hamas of preventing them from leaving the areas of conflict. He also rejected calls for a humanitarian ceasefire, saying this is a time for war, and that calls for a ceasefire are calls for Israel to surrender to Hamas, adding, "This is a battle of civilization against barbarians. The future of our civilization is at stake." The United Nations, meanwhile, warned that civil order is deteriorating in Gaza after weeks of a total Israeli siege and bombardment campaign, which Israel says is necessary in order to pressure Hamas to release hostages. Following pressure from Biden to immediately and significantly scale up the flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza, Israel agreed to allow 100 aid trucks per day into the territory. Moving on, a federal judge reinstated Trump's gag order in the election subversion criminal case. On October 20th, as she considered Trump's appeal, Judge Tanya Chutkin temporarily paused the gag order, which barred Trump from making public statements targeting prosecutors, court staff, and likely witnesses. The judge, however, reinstated the order after prosecutors cited Trump's recent social media comments about Mark Meadows, which they said represented an attempt to influence and intimidate a likely witness in the case. Trump's comments followed a report that Meadows was granted immunity to testify before a grand jury. After the judge reinstated the gag order, Trump called her a very biased, Trump-hating judge on Truth Social and claimed the order unconstitutionally takes away his First Amendment rights. Trump also called William Barr, his former attorney general and a potential witness in the case against him, dumb and weak and a loser. Meanwhile, Ivanka Trump will have to take the witness stand in the $250 million New York civil fraud case against Trump, Trump Jr., Eric Trump, and the Trump Organization. The judge overseeing the case denied a motion from Ivanka's attorneys to quash a subpoena for her testimony, arguing that she shouldn't be forced to appear after an appellate court removed her as a defendant in the case. The New York Attorney General's office also said it plans to call Trump Jr. to testify on Wednesday, Eric Trump to testify on Thursday, and Ivanka on Friday. Trump himself will take the stand November 6th. Moving on, Mike Pence suspended his presidential campaign, saying, "It's become clear to me that this is not my time." Pence's decision to end his campaign, which drew an audible gasp from the audience, comes less than 90 days before the Iowa caucuses, on which he had staked his campaign. Pence previously argued that Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election should disqualify him, saying anyone who puts themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. Meanwhile, Representative Dean Phillips launched a primary challenge against Biden for the Democratic nomination for president. The White House and the Biden campaign, however, barely acknowledged Phillips, saying that Biden expects the congressman's almost 100% support. And finally, the first of two trials to determine whether Trump is eligible to be president after his role in the Capitol attack on January 6th kicked off in Denver. One lawsuit argues that Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election meet the disqualification criteria under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which bars anyone who engaged in insurrection after taking an oath to uphold the Constitution from holding higher office again. The lawsuit was filed by the watchdog group Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington on behalf of 6 Republican and unaffiliated voters. On Thursday, the Minnesota Supreme Court will hear arguments in a similar suit filed by a group called Free Speech for People, which also cites the same provision in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. That's all for now. You can find the links and sources for all of these stories on the main website. And as always, visit whatthefjusthappenedtoday.com for the latest news and headlines. Until next time, I'm Joe Amditis.